What's up, everybody? J-Heat Sports Media coming at y'all again with that fire as always. Spitting the hot topics and getting the sports conversation started. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Football, basketball, and boxing. Let's get into it. So last night, if you were watching ESPN boxing, you had an opportunity to see Teofimo Lopez versus Jamaine Ortiz. Jamaine Ortiz suffered his second loss last night to the hands of Lopez. Now, depending on how you look at that fight, maybe you don't think Ortiz should have got his second loss. I know the people calling the fight was definitely thinking it could go either way. On the scorecards of the announcers, they had it leaning slightly by a round, I believe, to Ortiz. The judges, on the other hand, they ruled unanimous decision for Lopez. Now, two of the judges had the fight called 115 to 114 in favor of Lopez. Okay. The other judge, though, that had 117, I believe 111, that was crazy. And it makes it, again, look like there's corruption in boxing, or at least some shady stuff. I won't go as far as to say corruption, but there can be some shady bias that happens in boxing. And that's kind of the elephant in the room sometimes with these fights. Needless to say, from watching the fight, from my opinion, I did think Lopez was having a real hard time cutting off the ring. Everybody could see it. And what I mean by that, Ortiz is a southpaw, so he leads with his right for his jab, trying to set you up with the left, and he was trying to stick and move early and often the entire fight. He kept stepping out to his right after he would throw a few punches, and sometimes he didn't even throw punches. He would just step to his right. Some would call that running if you're watching the fight. He definitely had on his tap dancing shoes for sure. He was moving around convincingly. But depending on how you use that strategy, it can work to your benefit. So I know some people thought Ortiz should have won. I've heard people say it could have been a draw. The judges gave it to Lopez. We here. Lopez is still the WBO champ at 140 pounds. But what I noticed, other than Lopez's ability to cut the ring off, he for some reason couldn't figure out how to put his left foot out there to force Ortiz from going right, force him back left so he could catch him with his right, meaning Lopez catch Ortiz. He wasn't doing that much. He tried a few times, but more often than not, he was getting frustrated with Ortiz with the movement. Felt he was running. He was to an extent, but he was sticking and moving. He wasn't sticking and moving in a square space for him, no. Lopez wanted to kind of fight in the telephone booth. I will say Lopez has developed more boxing skills, I feel, over time. When he was at 135 pounds, he was a knockout artist, put you to sleep, had people doing the stanky leg. I mean, he hit guys and they didn't know where they were. When he fought Taylor in his last fight, he put on a boxing display. It's been difficult for him to carry his power up to 140 from what I can see. And it looked that way last night when he did have opportunities to try to strike. But his accuracy wasn't quite there. Mainly give Ortiz credit for sticking and moving. But I did notice a little more elusiveness, a little more ring gamesmanship from Lopez, that I think his boxing talent has increased over the years. So I'm going to give him credit for that. But I also see he has problems with guys that like to move and use the whole ring. So that's a big thing, especially if he's going to fight somebody like a Devin Haney, or even if he thinks he's going to be able to do something with Tank, should Tank come up there. It could be difficult for him. I don't feel like Lopez is a legit elite fighter anymore. I used to think that. I think he's good, but best of the best, he's not one of those guys. The fight, in my opinion, I think the reason the refs probably lean towards Lopez is because if Ortiz had been the champ and he was doing that running or just that moving, whatever you want to call it, it would have looked more like a good strategy, stick and move. That's his style, and he's trying to win on points. But because Lopez was so actively trying to engage Ortiz, really wanting him to stand toe-to-toe with him and fight, and he walked him down several times trying to encourage that, it made it look more like the champ wanted to wreck, and the challenger was just hoping to get out of there with a points victory. It's hard to take the belt from the champ when that's the case. That's why I think he lost, but it shouldn't have been a 117 card at all. It should have been either a split decision for Lopez. A draw could have been called, but you definitely can't get a belt away with the way Ortiz was fighting. But I wasn't impressed by Lopez either. I think he got some work to do, and he was talking trash to Shakur Stevenson. He don't want none of Shakur. Even though Shakur didn't look the best in his last fight, he don't want no parts of him from what I saw in that fight. Let me know what y'all think. All right, that's all the time I got. Y'all know what it is, and you know who you looking for. J-Heat Sports Media. Remember to like, subscribe, or get at me in the comments. Let's go back and forth. Look for me on YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok.